Hello and welcome back to episode 2 of the Punting.Fantasy podcast. My name is Sam, General Manager of the Bowman's Boys. I'm joined tonight by Tom, General Manager of the Dollar Store, and Mitch, General Manager of Mugsy's Mole Rats. How are you, gentlemen?
Very good. It's good to be back.
Yeah, very good, Wet. Another week goes by. Mugsy's Mole Rats, 3-0. What a time to be alive.
Yeah, you're an absolute hero, mate. Well done. Just keep robbing players down the bottom of their elite players. Tonight on the podcast, we're going to go through 4 different points. We'll start off with a bit of discussion around the cricket and T20 World Cup, as well as a little bit of the Sheffield Shield. We'll roll into what's happening in the world of NBA at the moment, as well as an insight into the Spring Carnival and a little bit of a review, as well as looking forward to this Saturday's racing, which should be a ripper. And finally, we'll cross to our 2 combat elitists to discuss a bit of UFC with us. Tom, keen to get your thoughts on the T20 World Cup and how that's progressed.
Yeah, well, the Kiwis, how about them? That's pretty good game yesterday. I just caught the last bit of it, and that was the best bit. 57 off 4 overs to win with an over to spare. And it was over the English too, so bit of redemption for the One Day World Cup. I did see a pretty funny thing going around saying that they won the boundary count 19-18. So there was no problem this time. But yeah, no, they looked the goods. Obviously, the Aussies playing tonight. Probably will know the result of that one by the time this hits the airwaves. But yeah, I watch a whole lot of anyone that's not Australia. But yeah, obviously Australia haven't looked all that hot. They've been being consistent. So I'm keen to see how they go against the Pakistanis. But yeah, New Zealand look the goods, don't they?
Well, they continue to look good in every world tournament that gets played, but seem to continually be overlooked. So they've gone what they would have gone 2015, 2019 World Cup finalists.
Yeah, finalists.
Then Test Championship winner, and now into the grand final again in the T20 World Cup. Like they keep getting overlooked, but they keep proving everyone wrong.
You have to think that they'll be favourites going into this one, regardless of whether they're playing against the Aussies or Pakistan. You have to think they're going to be the favourites.
Well, I haven't watched any of it, but I have heard that Pakistan have been looking pretty red hot. So
we know what Pakistan are like. They're notorious bed shitters when it comes to finals in world tournaments.
Yeah, well, so are New Zealand. So it could just be who shits the bed the least.
And a quick selection of who you think's going to take it all out. Obviously, not the 2 finalists locked in yet, but New Zealand and either Australia or Pakistan. Who are you guys taking?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Kiwis. I reckon they look the goods. And yeah, I just think Australia still slightly untrustworthy. And Pakistanis obviously a bit of a wild card. They've probably been the best formed team of the tournament so far. But yeah, I'm going to go with the Kiwis.
I'm going to go Pakistan Wet. I just think that they've got the home conditions and that might be enough to get them home.
Any idea on what the odds will be paying for around that mark? Pakistan has surely be the rank outsiders.
Well, I think they're unbeaten. They might be the only unbeaten team through the World Cup so far.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they'd be... Hang on, Wet. I'm just delaying because I'm going to quickly get some odds up for you.
They were unbeaten. They finished top of their group. Obviously, the Aussies dropped one. The Kiwis, have they dropped a game yet? I don't think they... no, maybe they haven't lost one either. So it'd be, Pakistan and New Zealand. I think would be the only unbeaten side still going.
No idea about the odds for winning the whole thing, but tonight's game, Pakistan, $1.85, Australia $1.95.
Yeah, right. How much money? Yeah.
Which pretty much T20, you're throwing a dart anyway. It's just whoever has their day. So,
with a coin,
pretty tough to pick.
One more thing on the World Cup. Can you get your thoughts around the universe boss, Chris Gayle, and his exit from international cricket? What did you make of that?
I think he's taken it a bit To me, he just looks like a bit of a clown.
You only think that just now.
No. I've thought that for a while, but just the whole carry on. Like, this bloke hasn't scored a run in like 5 to 10 years, and he's still carrying on like an absolute pork chop in like just the whole thing down to like the batting in the sunglasses and climbing on Mitch Marsh's back. Like, it's yeah.
No, I reckon at the end of the day, he's a flog. He's embraced that he's a flog, and he leaves as a flog. It's as simple as it gets, I think, Wet.
Yeah, I agree.
Might say a fair bit about me, but I absolutely love it. I love it. I love the energy that he brings. Moving on, we'll roll into a bit of Sheffield Shield, and the guy that I mentioned last week has been a bit of a smoky to open the batting for Australia. Usman just keeps on providing. Keen to see where you might sit him now in the Australian conversation for the Ashes series, but just what he was able to do yesterday in the Shield game. Tom, just what did you make of it?
Yeah, well, obviously he's in pretty hot form. We're just talking about before we jumped on. There's a few reports floating around that George Bailey's come out and said that Marcus Harris will be partnering Warner at the top for the first test. Obviously, with Pekowski already been ruled out as well. But yeah, like he's put his hand up. He's 70 yesterday or the day before out of Queensland's total of 129. He's now got just under 400 runs this Shield season in 3 games. At like a tick under 80. Just putting his hand up. Obviously, it was pretty tough batting conditions at the Gabba yesterday. Like tough overhead. Wicket looked pretty tough as well. And obviously, there was 12 wickets to fall in the day. And he scored 60% of Queensland's runs. So if the reports are true and Harris is in, then it's probably a bit stiff on Usman. But as I said last week, I did go with Harris to open the batting up top. So I don't hate the call. But yeah, for sure he would have the right to feel a bit stiffed. I think he's definitely put his hand up.
I think at the end of the day, Wet, it's Usman. His personality probably doesn't align with the general direction of Cricket Australia, and I think it's unfortunate for him. But I think he's a bit of an outcast in Australian cricket, and I don't think if he doesn't get in this time around, I'm not sure he's ever going to play again. Cause,
how old is he now? 34, 35?
Yeah, but I'm just thinking, like, even with his age, he's averaging 80. He's not going to be doing better next time the Test team comes around and there's a spot up for grabs.
It's the form bat in Australian cricket, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think if he doesn't get in this time, I think that's him done. But yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. And Mitch, you spoke before about a potential smoky. Do you want to chat the listeners through your thoughts around a WA bowler?
Well, I think smoky is definitely the right word because obviously the Australian bowling attack is unreal. And but Jai Richardson so far this Shield season he's killing it, and very helpful that dynamite spell he bowled against Queensland was on the Gabba, which is obviously where the first test is. But he's pretty much, he hasn't grabbed any big bags, but he's gone, 3 for 38 off 14 was that spell at the Gabba, and it just looked rapid and it looked bouncy and it looked like a nightmare. And then pretty much just like one more 3 for and a couple of just really economical spells, averaging around 25, and he's also scored a 50 as well this Shield season. So I think he definitely deserves a spot in the 13 or whatever they pick. Like I think he should be the next bowler if one of our superstars breaks down.
Are you putting him in ahead of Nessa, Mugs, or yeah?
Yeah, for sure. I just think he's faster. I think he's a bit bouncier.
Better in the Australian conditions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all I had for you, Wet. He's been, and he looks like he's fit again. Like even his first crack at Test cricket, he was bowling fast, and that was that series where India blasted us, and he was like he was actually one of the shining lights we had for that series. I thought anyway.
big guy, 2020, 2021 MVP, Jokic. Do you guys want to tell me what was going through his head about 2 days ago?
Yeah, it was a bit interesting, wasn't it? I think in the end he was lucky to get the one game. I think the fact that he is who he is probably has a bit to do with that. But yeah, obviously, bit of a take foul sort of attempt from Morris, but you know what he's like. Sort of undercut Jokic a bit. Sort of sent him flying a little bit and turned his back, and Jokic came and gave him the big ones. Sent him to the floor. So yeah, as I said, I think he was lucky to get away with the game. I thought when I saw it, I thought straight away, I thought that's got to be 2 minimum. Just going off recent kind of, that's probably the most aggressive bit of on-court activity, I think, since Rajon Rondo and Chris Paul punched on a few years back. And what they get, 3 or 4 games each, I think. That was like he was proper blindsided. Yeah, Morris hit the deck hard. Like Jokic really did like give it to him. So yeah, a game for the big fella. He served that now, so he'll be back, and that'll be it, I think. Anything else on that, Mitch? Or
I just thought the whole thing was hilarious. Just like the way Jokic moves in general is always pretty funny, and just the fact that he laid this bloke out. Like Morris, it was a take foul, like you said, Tom. But I think the one thing you could see, he did extend his elbow and like his forearm out. Like I think he was trying to. There was definitely a little bit more to it than just a take foul. Like he was definitely trying to, dig into the ribs. But I just think like the funniest part about the whole thing is they're winning by 15 points with 2 minutes left, and he does that. But as old mate's getting helped off the floor, Jokic is getting MVP chance. I think the whole thing was unreal.
Well, I think the other thing that was lucky not to count against Jokic was his history. He has got history of sort of losing his temper. Like he's had a few little instances before where he's been fined and whatnot. Yeah, he's obviously got. I think the fact that he was so remorseful after, like he said in the post game presser, he said he was regretful and it was a heat of the moment kind of thing. Obviously, must have helped him out, but yeah.
Well, I think the fact that old mate tried to break one of his ribs first probably
helped him
as well. Like the other one, Campaign, I'm assuming that's the other big one that you're talking about. He was literally just dribbling the ball, and Jokic decides to whack him in the face.
Yeah.
But that's all I had on Jokic. I thought the whole thing was unreal. I think it's great for the narrative, great for the NBA.
The brothers is funny. That was a great element as well. The Twitter account, stuff like that. I had a good laugh at that.
I still can't get past the game suspension for something like that, for something from behind, just an absolute cheap shot. I was really surprised. And then for Morris to cop $50,000, I think the fine was. I mean, for them that's peanuts, but
in the ocean,
still that's a lot of coin. Moving on, early MVP leaders. We spoke about our selections in the last episode. What have you made over the last week and their progression towards obviously being the best player in the comp?
Yeah, well, obviously, just going through Sportsbet, you can have a look at sort of the odds at the moment. Steph Curry is obviously the odds-on favourite at the moment at $4. I think I'd have to agree with that with the way the season's gone so far. They're 10-1 now after their win today against Minnesota. They've looked really good. Obviously, you got KD at $6, Giannis at $3, $7.50, Luka at $4, $9, Jokic at $5, $13. Jimmy Butler down at $7, I thought was a bit interesting. He's paying 18s. Obviously, the Heat have also had a really good start. Butler went down with an ankle problem today, but has been really, really good to start the year. So I thought him at 18 is pretty good value at the moment. And then another one even further down was Donovan Mitchell. Obviously not as big a name, but the Jazz, they're probably going to be knocking on the door of 60 or so wins, I think, this year. And so him at $31, when you've got a team that's going to win that many games, you're always going to have a guy who's going to be in and around that conversation. And Mitchell has started the year really well, so I think there's a bit of value there with him as well. Yeah,
I think the market looks pretty good. In my opinion, I think that the three up the top, Curry, Durant, and Antetokounmpo, are all streets ahead of the rest. Like, I think there's a pretty considerable. I would say there's bigger than $1.50 gap between Giannis and Luka.
I'd put Jimmy Butler before I put Luka Doncic.
Yeah, but anyway, like the one noticeable thing is that Curry has come from. He's probably come in from 12s, I think, last week when we were talking, into 4s. So, and it's actually quite bizarre because he was having a bit of a cold stretch and then obviously just had his explosion like he does, and his team's obviously killing it, which I think.
And that he's still averaging 27, 6.5. So like he's,
Yeah, I'm definitely not implying that he's shit, but that also ties in with the Warriors at the moment off to a flyer, 10-1. Without Clay, it's looking pretty. Like I'm not expecting Clay to come back and be world beater Clay, but I don't think he's going to hurt their chances in winning a championship.
Yeah, well, good news on the Clay front, or potentially good news. I was saying a few reports floating around today that he could be back before Christmas.
Well, it's from Woj. He never gets it wrong.
Yeah, so that's obviously big news. But on the Warriors, yeah, they 10-1, as we said now, 3rd in offensive rating, 1st in defensive rating. I think the year or 2 years for a lot of those blokes now, like Jordan Poole's and Damian Lee's and Wiggins, and has really helped them. They look like a team that's on the same page, whereas I think last year they didn't. There was a lot of times where they didn't quite look on the same page. And obviously, the way they like to move the ball is different to a lot of other NBA teams. So I think it's taken them a bit of time to sort of get into that flow and understand how Steve Kerr's offense works. But yeah, they've got it working. They're moving the ball around. Like I was saying before, Steph obviously had the bit of the explosion. I think besides that game, he's only had one other game where he scored above 30 points so far this year. So they're getting contributions from everyone. Obviously, Wiggins had a massive game today against his old club. But yeah, the defensive end is probably, like I was saying last week with the Bulls and how I was surprised with them. I've been surprised to see how good the Warriors. Defensive rating in 99 at the moment. 1st, as I mentioned. Very switchable, playing a lot of small lineups, running Draymond out there at the 5, and they're playing with effort. They look like they want to defend hard, and they are defending hard. They're switching everything, and then they're picking their moments to get in transition when they are turning the ball over. They're 5th in pace, so yeah, they're switching everything. They're playing hard, and they look really, really good.
Were they were the best defense in the league last year, though, weren't they?
Were they the top defense in the league last year? Oh, look.
I thought so, but could be wrong. Because I remember them saying that once they get Clay back, they've got that really good defensive foundation already laid.
In defensive rating last year.
There you go. I was wrong, but they were still good.
They were good. Yeah, no, they obviously Green looks like this is the best he's looked in, I would say, probably the last 3 years.
I was going to say he probably wouldn't be the most terrible bet in the world for a decoy.
Yeah. But yeah, they just have a lot of guys who can defend sort of multiple positions. Like they're not as switchable as someone like the Heat is, but they are running a lot of small lineups out there. A lot of Green at the 5, a lot of Bielitsa at the 5. Obviously, big Looney minutes today, but he's been sort of hot and cold. No Wiseman as of yet. I don't really know where he fits in when he comes back. But they're playing small and they're just getting out and they're running and they're getting in passing lanes and they're just active. They look really active, like they're really trying hard. It's an effort thing at the end of the day, defense, and I really like what I've seen from them so far.
Yeah. Ripper. Off the back of obviously the Warriors' hot start, there's a number of teams that have been struggling so far this season. We'll start with the Hawks. What have you? Obviously, they've got a lot of depth, especially that bench. Although they're still developing players, I think Atlanta's depth is unreal for where they're at. What have you made of their start so far?
Yeah, well, also they've lost 5 straight now. They're down to 4 and 8. They're down at like 12th or 13th in the East, I think. They looked really good in the first maybe 2 games of the season, and they've really struggled since. I think kind of piggybacking off the Warriors, who we talked about, they said like they look like they're on the same page. They've got that continuity. The Hawks, they don't really look like that at the moment, which is a bit odd. You would have thought they might considering the run to the Eastern Conference Finals last year and whatnot. But I think they're 29th in defensive rating, or maybe 27th in defensive rating. They're not stopping anyone. Capella has struggled. Obviously had the Achilles injury over the off-season, but hasn't quite been the deterrent at the rim that he was last year, and he has been in years gone by. And they're just getting a lot of hot and cold performances from blokes. John Collins has had some really good games, and he's had a couple of pretty average ones on the trot now. Trey Young not shooting the ball well, not getting to the line a whole lot, having those some kind of issues a lot of blokes are having, sort of driven by the rule changes. But yeah, they don't really look a whole lot on the same page at the moment. The bench is struggling. Reddish has been pretty average after that hot start, and Herder has really struggled. So yeah, 4 and 8, they want to make some kind of changes. I don't really know where they go from here, to be honest. It's a bit of a tough situation with them because they've got the pieces and they've shown they can do it. But yeah, they're not putting it together especially on the defensive end at the moment. So I don't really know where they go from here.
I can't really add too much onto that, Wet. I think Brady really knows his stuff there. But I would like to bring up just one other team that I think people should keep an eye on is the Pelicans. Currently at 1-10, season is fucking done for them. And I've just got a feeling there's blow-ups coming.
What do you reckon? Like, it's an interesting topic because, as you said, the season, like we're 2.5 weeks in, their season is already over. Yeah, I don't know what happens there. What do you reckon? What's the next step?
Well, I would have guessed at the start of the season this franchise had aspirations to play at least in the play-in.
Yeah.
And I think it's the worst kept secret that Zion hates it in New Orleans, and I just have a feeling that, like, because Zion, to be fair, Zion's been pretty shit for them. He hasn't been able to stay in shape or stay on the court, but I don't know. I think it starts with David Griffin getting the sack, the GM.
I think that's the first move.
And then I think they give the next bloke in a chance, and then I can't imagine Zion and his camp wanting to stay for too much longer if they're going to continually be shit. And that's pretty much all I have to add.
This is the worst bit about the whole way that the rookie scale extension stuff is structured, and the way it's going. Like, there's been a lot of talk about Zion, taking up the qualifying offer and hitting unrestricted free agency, a year after his rookie deal is done.
Yeah.
I understand that he's a generational talent, and I understand how it works. I'm no stranger to that, but there is something fundamentally wrong with the fact that this organization that hasn't been good ever, since they have been to New Orleans, and even before that, in Charlotte, they haven't ever been good. And the fact that they can be held hostage by, a guy in Zion who has played as many games as he's missed, I think he's just fundamentally wrong. As you said, like he doesn't look like he wants to be there. But at the end of the day, they're going to be held hostage by sort of his camp and his demands and what they want. There's been a whole lot of chat about, they're not winning enough games for Zion. But at the end of the day, like, when he plays, they're an above 500 team. The thing is, he doesn't play a whole lot. And so obviously Ingram's out as well at the moment, which never helps. JV's been doing his best, but he's not getting much help. It's an absolute train wreck, and I don't know what the next step is for them either. I think Griffin getting the sack is definitely the first thing. I think Willie Green gets the season, but I think Griffin can't be long for that job, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, Tom. My last comment would just be that I think Zion and his camp should be very mindful of maybe just extending and getting the money while he still can. Because
100% believe they will do it. Like, playing on the qualifying offer has never been done before, and I cannot see why Zion Williamson, a bloke who has got it already at 21 or 22, however old he is, has got a pretty nasty history of lower leg injuries and surgeries.
And is a big boy.
Yeah, he's the last bloke I would think would be wanting to play on that qualifying offer. He could be like, he does an ACL or Achilles or anything like that, and he's costing himself millions and millions of dollars. So yeah, I highly doubt that happens. I think he does what most other blokes have done. Takes the money, and then if he needs to, forces his way out later.
Yeah.
But that's the way it goes. But it is fundamentally wrong that can be how it goes. Because at the end of the day, this is a guy who hasn't proven anything in the NBA world. Yes, he's a generational talent, but at the end of the day, availability is the best ability, and he hasn't proven that he can be a guy you can build your franchise around yet. So there is something fundamentally wrong with that, I think.
Yeah.
That's the way it's gonna be, little darling. You go riding on the horses, yeah.
Well, we're going to move on now to our over to our racing.com impersonating Bowman. We're just going to do, obviously the Spring Carnival wrapped up probably 2 weeks ago now. We're just going to do a recap of that and just keeping it pretty simple and probably get through them pretty quick. We're just going to go top 3 horses of the spring, top 3 races of the spring, which obviously that's going to be pretty, that's based on your opinion, but we're backing you in here, mate, and just a jockey of the spring. So we'll start with the top 3 horses of the spring. Take it away, Wet.
Yeah, Ripper. Thanks, Mitch. It's pretty easy, I think, this one. Incentivise. Plain and simple. 3 Group 1s, second in the Melbourne Cup. From where he came to where he is now is, as I said last week, it's a special story. I think that Caulfield Cup, and I'll lead into that a little bit later, but that Caulfield Cup win was something else. I've not seen something win a Caulfield Cup that easily. And yeah, it was just a really impressive spring and good for a bit of Queensland blood to go down to Vic and show them what's what. So he finishes on top for me. That'll roll into the Melbourne Cup winner, Very Elegant, I think. Despite only obviously winning the one big one, I think as I touched on last week, that was a special win. Heaviest cup winner in the last 20 years or thereabouts. One of the quickest times that's been run in a cup in recent history, and in the fashion that she ran, although it was a weak race, and off the back of my horse of the spring, Incentivise, the way that she went home was special, and it was just an unbelievable win. Third for the spring, I'm going to go with the best sprinter in the world, Nature Strip. He was outstanding through the spring. Obviously managed to win in the Everest, which is never an easy task. It's the most expensive race in the world, prize money wise. So that's always special to win. You saw on the weekend win the Darley Sprint by an absolute mozza. Although it was paying $1.20 to win, you might as well put whatever you had on it because he was never losing, and that was really special for him to finish off the spring like that. So that'll be my 3-2-1 in the best horses of the spring.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good call, Wet. I think other honourable mentions, maybe Zaki, obviously had a couple of Group 1 wins, and as an outsider pick, Eduardo, which obviously a pretty old horse these days. When you compare it against the ranks of the ones you mentioned, nowhere near it, but for his age, pretty unreal prep.
Yeah, absolutely. You see the way that he carries himself, especially in the mounting yard, and always thinks he's 8 foot tall in comparison to the other horses.
He's jumping up, right?
Always, I look at him as they're walking out. Me and Lizzie Jelf are the experts at picking him in the yard. But no, his couple of wins that he ripped through were pretty special.
Righto. So we'll move on. We'll move on to the top 3 races of the spring. I'm guessing that we're going to hear some similar names, but obviously that's part and parcel. So do you want to run us through your top 3 races of the spring? Maybe lead into number 1. Wet. Go 3, 3rd, 2nd, 1st.
Done. All right, I'll start off with number 3, and I'll call the Cox Plate. I think a lot of the drama around the finish and the protest, and that was was really interesting and added a little bit of theatre. Obviously, you had your Melbourne Cup winner that rolled in third, a couple of lengths back, but certainly an intriguing race to watch, and I don't think too many plucked the winner. I know I was riding out of my home pretty hard, but no, that was certainly an interesting race over the Spring Carnival, which will lead into second, which is going to be a little bit controversial, but I've got Very Elegant winning the Melbourne Cup behind Incentivise, so Very Elegant winning the Melbourne Cup in second. Obviously, a weaker Melbourne Cup that you've seen before. Although she did demolish the field, I just can't take away from Incentivise's win in the Caulfield Cup. I think, in the Caulfield Cup, I think the background around that win made it a lot more special. We all knew about how great Elegant the mare was previous, and we saw Incentivise dominate through the carnival. But obviously the Toowoomba Maiden, where he finished 11th length last, to go from there to not only winning the Caulfield Cup, but just absolutely dominating and walking in at the end was special. So that's going to be number one race for the Spring Carnival for myself.
Yeah, I think they were definitely the three standout races of the spring. And while I may not agree with the order that you put them in, because I'm a massive Very Elegant fan, but that's, you do you, Wet. You're here for your expertise in racing, so I'm going to leave you to that. We'll move on to your jockey of the spring, and I just already can imagine who you're
I wonder who
selecting here. Try not to get a stiffy while you talk about him, eh?
I've read my notes and I've already copped one, so I'm not going to say too many words here. But J Mac, really easy. Most ever wins at a Spring Carnival. Had 10 through Cup week, inclusive of 4 Group 1s. Was special. He came across from Sydney, did his 7 days in quarantine, came out a new man, and absolutely romped some horses home over that little period. So that was outstanding to watch. And he was he had a special season. I think he's inside the top 5 in the Victorian jockey rankings for this season. So for a bloke who races out of Sydney and only goes there for a couple of weeks, that's saying something in itself.
Yeah, good call. I think he's definitely the standout, and I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Wet. So moving on from the Spring Carnival, this weekend we've got a few decent racing meets. We've got the Hunter in Newcastle and the Cranbourne Cup at Cranbourne. So I was wondering if you had any tips for this weekend at either of those two meets, Wet.
I do. I've got a couple at Newcastle, and then I'll list off some of the suggestions in the 2 big ones for this weekend. So starting off, we've got Newcastle race 2, number 1, Cisco Bay, and it's paying at around that $6.50 to $2.25 mark.
Eat that, Mozgov.
Take notes.
Mozgov's got nothing. I still haven't seen a post from him about anything. So whenever he wants to chime up instead of shouting from the peanut gallery, I'm ready. Cisco Bay, racing in some far better races than this one, and it's just a weaker race in general. Rain down that way expected over the next couple of days, so hopefully will be a softish, potentially even a low heavy track come the weekend. And Cisco Bay is just an absolute swimmer, so I think he'll set off the pace a little bit, and he'll be able to run home and finish over the top of Maranpa, who's obviously the favourite in that race, and should be coming home strong. Which will lead into the next selection that will take us to the Hunter, which is race 8 at Newcastle. I've taken Prime Candidate. He's a special type. And obviously, I'm not going to be taking Bowman in this one, unfortunately, as much as I love him. Obviously, the one to beat, but Candidate at $14 and $4.20 to place is certainly one to keep an eye on. I think in that one, should shoot forward and will take a little bit of catching. Rolling into race 10, we'll have number 3 Acquitted paying and 3:30 the
Geez,
plate.
you've got some value this week, Wet.
There's plenty rolling around this week, which I'm looking forward to. Is a previous first up winner. Is obviously first up this one. First race in Australia. Has some form around a Group 1 winner in the UK. And I mean, the last race, who else would you take but Huey Bowman? So that's who I've got at Newcastle. And for the Cranbourne Cup, which is obviously race 7 at Cranbourne, thanks for that, Mitch, I've taken number 10, King Magnus, at 750 and 260 the place. Is a very honest horse. Absolutely flies home. I would have liked her probably over a little bit further, but I think after a few goes at the 1600, hopefully he's worked it out and will be coming home strong over the top and take out the cup for this weekend. That's my 4 for this Saturday. Good luck if you follow. Keep an eye out on Punting.Fantasy Instagram page for any other selections.
Yeah, that's good, Wet. That's racing. That's the Spring Carnival recap and a few things to make you really rich this weekend.
It's time!
Welcome back. I'm now joined by Kevin, who's the GM of Schmitty's Chutney, and Dom, who is the GM of Jingled Bells. These two blokes are our resident combat sport experts here at Punting Fantasy. Boys, I just got you together because it was obviously a pretty good card of fights on the weekend. UFC 268. Was just wondering if there are any major talking points or fights on the early prelims that you thought were pretty impressive.
G'day, boys. How are we? UFC 268 on the weekend. Obviously an unbelievable card for those who watched it. And, it was from start to finish, really, with the early prelims, setting the tone for the night. So in the I think it was the end of the early prelims, we had Ian Gary versus Jordan Williams. He's sort of the spirit of Ireland. Connor was his idol coming through, and it was pretty cool to see him giving Gary props after the fight. I'm not sure if you caught any of that, Riv.
Evening, lads. Yeah, I saw little bits. It's good to see, a good Irish lad try to follow him up. I've seen that other fella with the Bieber haircut covering his name coming through. He's trying to imitate, McGregor a bit much, but
yeah,
I like
Paddy.
good, Pat. What's his name? Paddy Pimblett.
Paddy Pimble, yeah.
Yeah, but just why we all fell in love with McGregor initially. Well, I reckon he was just a good fighter, good honest fighter, and Ireland's a fighting nation, and good to see the Irish boy coming through.
Yeah, and also on the early prelims was Chris Barnett, the big heavyweight, 265 pounds, coming in with a performance of the night. Did you catch that one?
Oh, so this is why we love heavyweights. These are just big fellas who come out and do things they shouldn't be able to. I don't know if you saw him walk out, but he was like dugging and doing all a bit, there's a lot of money on it, but he comes out and, delivers not even exaggerate, a full roundhouse knockout of this other bloke who's 6'4", built like a brick shit house, and he hits the deck. And then, good celebration, just a casual front flip lands on his ass, screams to the crowd, gives him the finger, That's why I want to see it.
That front flip just made it. Like watching a bloke that's 120 kilos do a spinning wheel kick on a bloke and then land on his ass doing a flip celebrating.
Yeah, I don't know if you're supposed to land on his feet, but landing on his ass is probably better because it just broke the floor.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on to the prelims, we had Edmund Shabazian. He went down to Nasruddin Imavov. That's 3 L's on the trot for young Shabazian, which is obviously not ideal after sort of being talked up as one of the next big things in the UFC. So we'll see where he goes from here. And then we had a couple more really solid fights on there. Unfortunately, we had Raging Al go down to Bobby Green, one of my favourite fighters. That was a bit of a shame. And then the top of the prelims, Alex Pereira. Have you heard of this bloke, Riv?
No, haven't heard of him much before this weekend.
He has 2 kickboxing victories over the bloke that's probably considered the best striker in the UFC, possibly in UFC history, in Israel Adesanya.
So you're gonna say Wonder Boy there?
So they've brought him in, and they're really going to set up. They're going to try to set up that fight, I think, over the next couple of years. So his takedown defense held up, and hopefully he can get that fight set up in the next couple of years. Moving on to the main card, this was probably the best main card I've seen. Opened by Justin Gaethje versus Michael Chandler. You're probably getting pretty short odds for this one to be fight of the night, and it lived up to everything that was expected and more, really. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, well, going into it, those two boys talked up how much they like to bang and they like to just stand in front of each other. And that's exactly what they did for 15 minutes. It was, you watch the first 2 rounds and there's some good technique behind it all when they knock each other down and they wobble each other. But then the last 5, like the last round, they're literally just standing in front of each other, wobbling, looking like they're half dead, just eating punches. And you just don't, you think, like you said, you thought short odds that's going to end in a knockout. And they both just ate everything. We know Gaethje loves just to sit there and bang and just cop punches to the head. And that's his appeal. But I was really impressed by Chandler. But coming out of it, the one thing I took more out of it than anything was that the current champ, he knocked out Chandler with just a short hook, the last time they fought, which makes me think that he must have a bit, because I don't know how I feel about Oliveira's champ, but we'll get on to that a little bit later. But if he can knock Chandler out and Gaethje's throwing bombs at him for 15 minutes and Chandler's still standing there, it just makes me even more impressed by the champ, to be honest. But great fight, fight of the night, as you said. I wouldn't hate seeing that again, to be honest, between the 2 of them.
Yeah. No, definitely. After that, we had Shane Burgos versus Billy Q. And on any other night, this would have been fight of the night. Unbelievable scrap. Shane Burgos got the win there. And then we had Chito Vera against Frankie Edgar. Not sure if you saw this finish, but it was a front kick to the chin, a la Anderson Silva.
Have you seen the photo?
Yeah.
Yeah. Marks, have you seen that photo too?
It's one of the most extraordinary photos I think I've ever seen. It's up there with the Ngannou uppercut.
Yeah, his face comes up.
Mate.
Yeah.
I don't know if Frankie's
always
going
tough
around
to
much
see.
longer.
Always tough to see those legends sort of get knocked out in their last couple of fights. But he's had a great career, and I probably want him to hang him up now. And then the 2 championship fights in the women's strawweight, we had Rose Namajunas fighting Zhang Wei Li. What do you think of that one?
Yeah, that was a good fight. I think the clear 2 best in that division. Wei Li is just a tough nut. She throws everything into every punch and sort of loses the technique a bit, so she gets caught. But she's able to sort of eat anything Rose is throwing at her. Rose is just technically brilliant to watch. Some of the kicks she can pull off, and I was surprised it went 5 rounds, to be honest, because the last time they fought, Rose did it pretty easily. Good fight. Sometimes the female fights can be, not as heavy on the big hits, but that one was, backing up after that Gaethje Chandler fight. That was just as impressive, to be honest. So good fight between those 2 girls.
Yep, and then the main event, Marty Fake Newsman versus Colby Chaos Covington. I'm a Colby guy.
God.
Shame to see him take that L, but great fight. I was a bit disappointed with how he came out in the first couple of rounds. I thought he'd really put the pressure on him from the start, but having had his jaw broken by him last time, I think he was probably a bit wary of his power. I had him losing the second round 10-8. And then probably coming back to win 3 and 4. And then round 5 could have gone either way, but Usman probably shaded it. So 48-46 or 47 all would have been acceptable in my book. But I think no one's crying robbery in that one. So fair enough to Marty.
Yeah, Usman's clearly the number 1 in that division, I reckon. He's number 1 pound for pound now, I was looking at before. But, they've fought 10 10 good rounds essentially against each other over 2 fights. Been 2 great fights. I don't know if Colby gets back there again, at least while Marty's the champ. But, you know, Brisbane continues to impress. I reckon his stand-up's got his wrestling's always there. I just didn't see how Colby was going to get it done if he can't, you know, take him down, which he couldn't.
Did you watch any of the pre-fight chat between those two?
Oh, I saw bits, like, you know, all of Colby's stuff just molds into one now. He's been talking nonsense for 3 years, 4 years.
Yeah. It's pretty funny. Like, he'll just talk nonsense. He'll just talk shit to get under anyone's skin. Like the CEO of EPO, he was calling him. And then whenever anyone has a crack at Colby, he just goes, I'd like to thank all the first responders. Like, he just goes on his rant and then talks about making America great again and all this shit. That's why the Trump supporters loved him. He'll always have a fan base, but
Yeah.
he actually is a gunfighter. But anyway, that's a wrap of UFC 268. Great card.
Yeah, it definitely sounds that way, Kev.
Right.
But I think the most surprising part of that card was that Conor McGregor actually did something classy in 2021.
No, I appreciate everyone joining in and having a listen to episode 2 of the Punting.Fantasy podcast. Appreciate all your support over the last week. Really looking forward to really rip into this podcast. And if you ever have any questions, again, please feel free to DM Tom Brandt on Instagram. He's happy to take on any of your questions, and we'll chat about it in the next show. That's all for now.